All right, come on in, everybody. Welcome back to the Holler. tnholler.com is where you can find us at the TN Holler on Twitter, Facebook. We have hollers hollering all across the state. Thanks to your support, we really appreciate it. Your small dollar monthly donations keep us going. If you need a lawyer, Abby Rubenfeld is who you should reach out to. If you need buying or selling a home in Middle Tennessee, Elisa Parker. And if you need some coffee, Bongo Java. I don't have their graphics, but those are our sponsors. They are supportive of us. And signing on here to try to be supportive of you guys right now. I know everybody's got a lot of thoughts about what happened last night. I certainly do. It's a tough one. And I thought maybe we could process this together. Jonathan says, appreciate you going live today of all days. I'm terrified, says Liz. Horace says, all I have this morning is what the fuck? And you say, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. It's tough. It's tough. I'm not sure what to say. Let's go through what happened, talk about some of the things that happened, and then maybe give some thoughts about why. But I will say before we get into that why is always very amorphous in politics. It's sort of the beauty of it. We're never going to know why. We're going to have a lot of theories about why. There's going to be a lot of blame thrown around, but we're never going to know. So you're free to have your own thoughts, and so am I. And I have some. So I'm here to share them with you. One thing that I do want to point out, yes, one thing we're not doing is storming the Capitol. That's exactly right. I think that's an important thing to point out. And I do want to say on that note, like, man, isn't it weird that when Democrats were in control of the government, they didn't rig the election, but apparently they rigged it last time when they weren't? Isn't that a little weird? Man, they're pretty bad at this rigging stuff, aren't they? Can we put that bullshit to bed now, everybody? Can we stop the lies about our elections now? Seems like that should be one pretty big takeaway, that those were always lies and that this is not rigged. And so we control the weather, but not the government, you say? Yes, exactly. You know, that's one big takeaway. All right, so what happened? Trump won, passed the 270 mark around 5 o'clock this morning. This is one of the headlines on the New York Times today. America hires a strongman. This was a conquering of the nation, not by force, but with a permission slip. I mean, one thing you have to say is he told us what he wanted to do. Nobody should be surprised by what comes next. You know, I think people are going to lean on, well, maybe it was all bluster. You know, he doesn't really have any morals or convictions. So possibly now that he's in there, he'll turn around and say, you know what, I kind of don't want to be remembered for all this. Maybe I want to be remembered for, you know, being liked by both sides of this aisle. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think, if you care what I think and you're here watching, so hopefully you care what I think people are going to be pretty surprised by how much follow through there is on this stuff. The J.D. Vances of the world, Peter Thiel, Stephen Miller, that's who's driving this ship. Elon, obviously, that's who's driving this ship. And I think they mean it when they said what they were going to do. Stephanie says it's misogyny. That's certainly one major piece of this that I think everybody would be remiss not to point out. I mean, she is a overqualified, impressive woman, and he's a felon who has done all kinds of ugly stuff. I mean, Epstein's best friend. On tape, Epstein says that guy's been my best friend for 10-year periods, and nobody even talks about it. But here she is, DA, AG, vice president, senator. So there's that part of it. Another part of it, I think, just what I think, I think you can make the case that, like, as a country, we're kind of just like going against whatever we have, right? So, we had Trump, then we rebelled against that. We had Biden, now we're rebelling against that. We have Trump again. So, she was suffering from Biden's incumbency, painted as an extension of Biden, right? That was their whole thing. She is Biden. She's going to claim not to be Biden, but she's just an extension of Biden. And I think, for a lot of people, that probably seemed true. And the economic situation, which we can talk about how much of that is narrative and how much of that is reality, right? I mean, there were certainly some metrics by which we're doing pretty good. Growth, wages are, have risen, even though they're not keeping up necessarily with inflation. Some people would say they have recently. Unemployment is low. The market is up. So there are certain things that we're doing really well. I mean, I've heard economists talk about us as the envy of the nation, but inequality is inarguably still very high. And even though inflation is down, the prices have still gone up. And we've seen leaders across the world, not just here, lose their elections in this environment. And so if she's painted as an extension of Biden and doesn't do enough to separate herself necessarily, didn't really even try to, honestly, then she's suffering from his incumbency, right? So you've got misogyny for sure, probably some racism in there. The economy and the narrative about the economy is in there, the incumbency part of this. So there's all these pieces of it. I mean, to me, Gaza's a big part of this. She didn't separate herself from Biden on the Gaza thing at all, really. Said some of the stuff, but he was saying some of that stuff too. So, I think there are a lot of people who, for them, that was the issue. And, when they didn't even allow a Palestinian voice on stage at the DNC and she hasn't really separated herself, I think there were a lot of people that focused on that. I don't necessarily think that was the whole thing, but that was a part of it. So it's the stew of stuff, and it's hard to know what it really was. And again, that's the beauty and the scary part of politics in general. We're handing him a very good economy. He'll take credit for it. Of course he will. Absolutely. Disappointed in the American people. Get ready for a dictatorship. It's here and it's frightening. I mean, I'm certainly worried. And by the way, about the Gaza stuff, like I want to point out, like, already Israel is hugely excited about what just happened there. So, if you did make that your focus and that was your one issue, now you've got a guy who they're very happy to have in office, Netanyahu and his right-wing government. And, obviously things have been really bad over there. Haaretz, their editorial board, is saying that basically an apocalypse has been unleashed in northern Gaza. There were protests because he fired the defense minister. So if you did focus on Gaza, I would say that be careful what you wish for, because now we're about to get it. I understand it, but I join, the Mehdi Hassans of the world and the John Olivers of the world in saying, like, we probably would have been better off with Kamala in there, because you get to choose your opponent in these elections in that moment. And Trump has already said, he wants Bibi to go even further. The bond market is already reacting to a large incoming spike in inflation. That's in reaction to, I believe, the tariffs that he promised, which I would say, if there's one thing that he may not follow through on as much as he said, it would probably be the tariffs, because there's going to be a lot of really rich people in his ear about that. But what I will say, about that is there are also going to be people in his ear, and this is something to watch for. There's a guy named Dave Troy on Twitter who has been saying this for a really long time, and I think it's important to have it in the back of your mind. What do Peter Thiel, Elon, and those broligarchs want, right? Why are they so interested in Trump? And what Dave has been saying for a long time, and actually Mark Cuban said this also, and I think I've said this on here too before, but I just want to say it again. They own a lot of Bitcoin. And we have this thing in our country called the debt ceiling that we bump up against. I don't know why we did it to ourselves, but we did it. And we bump up against it regularly, like every year, every 2 years or something. And basically what it is it's a way for us to cap our spending, I guess. And so Congress has to vote to raise it in order to continue to pay our bills. Basically, it's stuff we've already paid for. It's when the credit card bill comes in, the debt, we need to raise it to pay for the stuff that they've already spent. If we don't do that, we default. If we default, things get bad real quick. And if things get bad real quick, Bitcoin goes up because that's kind of a hedge on our economy, on our currency. And these guys in his ear own a shit ton of Bitcoin. So what Dave Troy has been warning about for a long time is the debt ceiling default being what Peter Thiel and Vance and Musk have in mind. AI and no regulation, cryptocurrency. So I'm just saying that to say, keep that in mind. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Another thing to keep in the back of your mind is the role that Tennessee people are going to play in this, because I have been hearing that the reason that Haggerty and Blackburn and Green, I mean, obviously they're true believers in some of this stuff, but I think they are going to be candidates to be a part of this administration. And so what you may see is Haggerty, Secretary of State, something like that. Mark Green may finally become Army Secretary, which he's always wanted, or whatever. Marsha Blackburn may have a role in this somewhere. And if that happens, if they get appointed, then there's openings in their seats. And then you're going to see people like Jack Johnson at the state level and Cameron Sexton at the state level potentially be the appointments to those seats by Governor Lee as a reward for their help on this private school voucher scam stuff. That's what I've been hearing. So keep that in the back of your mind, that we're now about to see a domino effect that largely involves a lot of Tennessee people and that are linked to vouchers, which, as we all know, are a important part of everything that happens here in Tennessee. Let's see some of your comments. Sorry, I've been ranting. I just want to see some of what you guys are saying. Biden needs to do a lot of big things in the next few weeks since they wouldn't be illegal, apparently. Well, what Sarah's talking about there is the immunity thing, which, yeah, let's not forget that not too long ago, the Supreme Court that he handpicked basically said he can do whatever he wants. You think he's not going to exercise that power? Of course he is. I mean, the first thing he's going to do is he's going to pardon himself. Then he's going to pardon the January 6th people, right? I mean, that's what's coming. And who knows what else he's going to pardon. If I'm trying to cheer you up and give you a reason to go on, you're failing. I mean, that's part of why I came on here, but not really. You have to go on. Like, let me just say that. We have to go on. This was never going to be a destination. This was always a checkpoint, no matter who won, even if Kamala won. This was a checkpoint, not a destination. The work goes on. But no, I'm not coming on here to try to throw a bunch of roses around and say everything's going to be peaches and cream. That's not why I'm here. You know, I do believe that a lot of what was warned about is going to come to fruition now. And, you know, some people that I've talked to on, you know, Democrats have said, well, it's what we deserve. This is the country we deserve. And, you know, honestly, let's let it happen and give them what they want now and see how they like it. And maybe that's what'll wake them up. So I've heard that argument. And, you know, obviously I think there will still be a resistance to it, and there should be. But I do think there's an element of that. Why did Tennessee choose Blackburn over Gloria? I mean, I think we all knew that was going to happen. This were the headlines last night. One of the things that I noticed, which was disappointing to me, was like those headlines that I just showed you. They came out 1 minute after the polls closed. Like, imagine being Gloria and running your ass off for a year plus, and then the polls close and the headlines say you lost immediately, like without even any results in. I don't know. I just think that's a pretty gross practice that they have, and you know, unnecessary. So that's why we made that comment last night. Not cool. All right, you want some good news? I got some good news. I got some good news. Ready? Here's some good news. Couple good newses. I got 3 good newses for you right now. One good news. One good news is there were these gun safety law referendums in Memphis that Speaker Sexton threatened to withhold tax revenue from Memphis over. Well, they all passed overwhelmingly, and he knew they would. That's why he threatened them. Now, those referendums were assault weapons ban, red flag laws, and repealing permitless carry, making sure people have permits. Now, again, those were referendums. They were not laws. So they're not actually law in Memphis. They are Memphis's opinion about what the law should be that can then be used to make the case to the legislature saying, see, this is what the people want. And they obviously didn't want that. And that's why they threatened them. So those passed overwhelmingly. That's some good news. That's Memphis showing up. Good news number 1. All right. You guys like that? Good. Okay. So here's some good news. All right. 2 more good newses. 2 more good newses. I'm going to save the best for last. Number 2, saving the best for last. Second piece of good news is in Kentucky next door. They put vouchers on the ballot. And even as Trump won, vouchers lost overwhelmingly in Kentucky. So our neighbors next door rejected the private school voucher scam up there. Now, it's worth pointing out in Tennessee, we don't have ballot referendums because they're afraid of what the people would say. We have referendums. We don't have ballot initiatives. Like, we can't make law just by the people saying they want something. God forbid we let the people have their way and have a say that way. I think we should have a referendum or at least a poll question about vouchers on our ballot in Tennessee, but we don't. But Kentucky did, and they defeated it, even as Trump won. Even as Trump won. They also have Bashir up there, as Sarah says, and not Governor Lee. So that's a Republican state rejecting vouchers. That's important. That's good piece of news. Number 2, these small wins feel like breadcrumbs. I cannot help with that. They are breadcrumbs. Absolutely. But here's one that's not a breadcrumb. I got one this is the biggest one. This is the best one for last. Oh, wait, before I get to that, yes, I agree with you, Autumn. I don't want to lose this comment. Media is a big part of the problem. Be honest, not sensational. Coverage on the candidates was not the same. And I think they absolutely normalized Trump for 4 years as opposed to sounding the alarm about him. I agree with you. All right. Good piece of news. Number 3. This is the best one, in my opinion. This is the best one. Good piece of news number 3 is that last night in Nashville, hang on. I had her picture here. No, I don't have it. I'm going to find it because I want to bring up her picture for you guys. Last night in Nashville. Give me a second. It's loading. All right, here we go. Last night in Nashville, Shawn Del Brooks won her state house race. Now, Shawn Del, her son was killed in the Waffle House shooting. And she decided she was going to run to change gun laws, threw her hat in the ring, won a primary, and then beat Speaker Sexton's guy, Chad Bobo, last night. Shawn Del Brooks is going to be in the state house as Rep Brooks, joining Justin Jones, Justin Pearson, Gloria Powell, and the Dems. And that is good news. That's real good news. So that's inspiring that Shawn Del threw her hat in the ring and won. So I think that's a big deal. It's going to be great to have her up there. And I'd be curious to know what you guys think about that. How did Tim Burchett and Marsha Blackburn win? Good questions. They always win. It's a beautiful place to live, you say, but government makes us look like trash. I mean, obviously, I'm not a fan of our government. Anyway, those were the 3 good things. Go Brooks. All right. Yes. Good. Go Rep Brooks. Shawn Del, very happy that she won. We'll try to have her on here at some point. So those were 3 pieces of good news. The referendums passed, then the vouchers were beaten in Kentucky, and Shawn Del winning. I got 3 for you. That's about it. But other than that, this was rough. As far as Kamala and the campaign that she ran, again, there's going to be people that will have their thoughts about what she should and should not have done differently. It's possible that she was in a no-win situation from the beginning based on the conditions, the inflation, the incumbency of Biden. It's possible there's nothing she could have done, but it's also possible that there are some things she should have leaned into a little bit more, and people are going to have their theories. But again, the thing that I'm going to go back to here is that no matter who won last night, we were all going to have to keep going because this democracy, it's a process. And last night was a checkpoint and not a destination, no matter what. And so we got to keep going. And to me, as far as Tennessee goes, like, I don't really know what to say about it other than, this is not going to be a quick fix. It's just not, and very clearly there's something going on with, how most of the state views Democrats in general. And I think more time needs to be spent on that, like if Democrats were Coke or Pepsi and 65% of the state was like, I prefer this, not that, then I think, there would be like a branding question, a focus grouping of the branding and the associations that you make with that name going on. Like, I guess what I'm saying is that candidates out there shouldn't beat themselves up over the campaign that you ran, because really this is tribal now. This is about the association with the brand. And to me, that's what needs to be looked at. Progressives have swung too far left and this state rejected them soundly. I don't agree with that. I just don't. I mean, Bredesen didn't win either. He lost pretty badly, and he was no progressive. So I don't think that you can say that, honestly. I think it's really just about, the letter, honestly, at this point, and the associations that people are making with it. And to me, progressive is pretty mainstream, honestly. Like, Medicare for all is popular, gun safety laws are popular. I guess it depends what you mean by progressive, but medical marijuana, legalizing marijuana is popular. So, and Kamala, progressive, conservative, moderate, like that was kind of a thing that she was, weighing throughout the campaign. And I don't think you could say she like leaned into progressivism. I mean, Liz Cheney was who she was campaigning with, I think moderates maybe didn't trust that she was moderate, and progressives didn't trust that she was necessarily progressive. And that's a tough thing to balance. Authenticity obviously is, I think, a big part of these campaigns. And Trump, say what you will about him, but he's authentically himself. I mean, obviously I can't stand him, but authenticity, that kind of carries the day, generally speaking. And I like Kamala. I mean, I'm not saying I don't like her. I like her. It's just like she was kind of trying to figure out where she stood on some stuff and changed on some stuff that I wish she had, honestly. I mean, Medicare for all, she like ran away from that. Why? That's popular. People like that. Fracking was a thing she leaned into to like court, I guess, some big dollar donors. And again, the Gaza stuff, like, I don't think you could say she ran like a fully progressive campaign. Some stuff she was progressive on, sure. So, I think probably the lesson people are going to learn, because it's the lesson they always learn, is like, need to be more centrist or need to appeal to more Republicans. Like, and I personally wish one day we would learn the opposite lesson, that when you do that, you're pretending to be them. And, you know, when people would prefer that, they're just going to vote for the real thing, you know. But then also you can make the case that we're just rebelling against what we have. You know, I think you can make that case that it's like we had Trump, then we voted for Biden, then we had Biden, then we're voting for Trump. You know, it's like, and Obama overcame that, special guy, but it's possible that it's just a reaction, you know. What are you guys saying? And then I'll let you guys go. Tennessee is gerrymandered, that is for sure, but you can't say that about the Senate race. So, you know, something's going on there. And we're going to have a governor's race at some point soon. Fracking attempt to court Pennsylvania. Right. I mean, it is that for sure. Now, whether or not that it didn't work, you know, so make of that what you will. We need to draw a sharper contrast between progressives and regressives. That rings true for me, you know. And again, with this stuff, you never really know the truth until it happens. And even then, you won't know. Like, you never know. It's the beauty of this whole process. You never really know. But to me, that is how I feel. That's how I feel. And, you know, I think the role the media played here can't be overlooked. Like, I don't think they were sounding the alarm about this guy in the way that they needed to. I just don't. They certainly don't do it here in Tennessee. And so to me, you're either sounding the alarm or you're normalizing it. There's no third option. And too many outlets, I think, are giving themselves a pass of like saying, oh, well, we're on the sidelines. We're just calling balls and strikes. No, that's normalizing it. That's the choice you're making. And, you know, we have tried to be very clear at the holler that, like, we don't do that. Like, we looked outside, we saw it was raining, we told you it was raining. And, you know, to me, more outlets need to do that. You know, I mean, CNN, people say CNN seems complicit. I've seen, you know, people say that about the Times. Washington Post didn't endorse, LA Times didn't endorse, you know. So all this talk is well and good, but what are we going to do about it? I mean, yeah, like I think that's the next question. I think that's a good question. And it's not an easy question, you know, but what I will say is this. When Biden won and the Democrats took the Senate, like, it's not like Republicans were like, oh, they must be right about everything, and we have to now, like, change everything we're doing and be more like them. Like, sometimes that's just like the this of the country, you know. And I personally don't think that means abandon all moral principles and become them. Like, I would hate to see people take that lesson here. To me, that's not the lesson. Almost every country in the world has universal healthcare, high-speed rail, efficient public transportation. We have lobbyists against all of those by our government. Yes. Right. Like, this idea that these things that you're talking about there are like far left ideas. They're not. These are actually centrist ideas globally speaking. The rest of the world has this stuff. So, you know, it doesn't make us radicals. Progressive is mainstream in this way. I'm tired of people normalizing Trump, says Chris. Not going to storm the Capitol. Yes, back to that. We're not going to storm the Capitol. We need a nap before we all collectively meet at the library. Solid plan. Efforts to reach out or reinvent the party. Media owners support Trump and basically want it. Yeah, I mean, you know, that's the thing to keep in mind. Is like, we're up against some very vested interests with a lot of resources. And that's not an easy thing to overcome. But I think the one thing that I just hope is that people don't give up, because that's probably going to be pretty easy to do right now. And if you let go of the rope and give up, then that's when bad things happen. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next. I can assure you that, the Holler's going to be here talking about it. Uh, you know, Come January, we'll be back at the Capitol talking about what goes on up there, trying to keep you posted about what's going on up there. Question: Are we still a democracy? It is a question. That is a question. I mean, in many ways, yes, I would say so, but in many ways, not so much. Uh, Certainly gerrymandering is a very real thing. Voter suppression in Tennessee, 500,000 black people are disenfranchised because they won't let them vote. I mean, that's a big deal. So, this is a question. This is the question. I think in many ways we are a theocracy. And I think all you need to do is ask them and they will tell you. Anyway, we will keep reporting on what's going on here. We always appreciate you guys for the support, for the interaction. We're going to try to have more people on here to talk about this stuff. Again, just to go back to the key point to me, which is this was always going to be a checkpoint and not a destination. And so we got to keep going no matter what. Thanks for following the Holler, and we'll see you next time.